Percolate on a particular mix of odd and inspiring news headlines in Wendy's Coffee House. Newsmakers with a penchant for the unknown, unexplained, and unusual share their experiences with UFOs, ghost encounters, near-death experiences, and more for your own unique blend of Wendy's Coffee House Curious. And now, here's Wendy.
Summer's going way by too fast. Going by way too fast. See, it already flew by. Hi there. Thanks for listening to Wendy's Coffee House. You can catch up on any of the shows on the podcast at Audio Boom or go to the blog, wendyscoffeehouse.com, and just pick a link, click a link, you're good to go. Background, I try to include that with each of the shows, and sometimes that'll carry on to another blog post. But if you have questions, just email me. The email is on the blog, or it's light4one@aol.com. All right? And that is LITE, the number 4, ONE, at AOL.com. A lot of stuff. I mean, there's so much stuff going on. This is a very active summer. Matter of fact, I'm talking with, we talked with Maxine about the astrological chart, the way things were supposed to be getting a little more maybe complex and active. And I think that's going to live up to that with the eclipses and the supermoons and all that good stuff. So there's stuff happening anyway, regardless of the astrological forecast, all over the planet. And I think that, for me, is what is most fascinating, because my own stuff, my own paranormal thing that goes on 24/7 and has been since 1997 with that interactive light, that just changed my life and my focus. So if you're along for the ride, I appreciate it. You're not the only one who's interested in things that are curious, all right? There are a lot of us out here going, what the heck? Why isn't anybody paying attention? What is going on? There's so much that the only thing that you can do is just go, wow. One of those things is happening. And it's so nice to be able to go to a place and see other people who are curious, drawing other people who are curious, and bringing people to the equation who might have the ability to provide some answers and some explanations, or maybe a way that we can ask better questions. That was the visit I did with Board Camp Crystal Mine, okay? First, a couple of headlines, which I think adds to the equation. This is the stuff that, of course, they were not, no way, we don't have these kinds of programs. Well, the Ministry of Defense, the UK, This is the one where they are continuing to release some of their records that have been declassified. One of them was that they were researching to see what was happening with UFOs, because the UK was afraid that China or the Soviet Union had already found a UFO, impounded it, and was, basically looking at how they could back engineer it into something really cool, because those things that were flying on the air were not our technology, and they had to have come from somewhere on the planet. And eventually they found out they didn't. And so all these UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena things, were happening. This is a fascinating study, fascinating case. The Black Vault is a great site to go to if you want to find a lot of, curious things too. But this has just been released recently, so that's got my attention. It's like, thank you. Okay, more of this stuff coming to light. And you knew that. You knew that basically the reason they can't talk about it is because they don't know what to say. They don't know how to explain it. And when you have no answer, sometimes the best defense is having, I don't know, as the answer. It doesn't exist is a good answer. And you're crazy is another answer. That happens a lot. And that's what happens when people try to investigate this stuff, because they see that there's more to this than meets the eye. And that's the key. We can't see all of this. So we may have to change the way we research, the way we document, the way we explore, the way we investigate, to fit the stuff that doesn't show up on our physical radar, because it's there. It's there. All right. So along that line, I wanted to get into the content and the background for the trip to Board Camp Crystal Mine. Because for me, I just thought, when I was talking to these folks about and we just did a second interview after the trip, when I was talking with Orville and Cheryl, it was more about the crystals and the paranormal, the light phenomena. They had seen these lights appear back out over the area where they harvest the crystals. I thought, well, that's fantastic. I did not know until Andy and I showed up that this was a major Sasquatch sighting area. Now, after we stayed the night, a couple of nights, and drove through the town and then saw one of the little curio shops with all the Bigfoot, like mama, daddy, baby, in the, the outlines of the Sasquatch family, I realized, oh, good grief, this is this is like Sasquatch Central. Bigfoot lives here. And that was, okay, so there you go, afterwards. But during was a very, really helpful, up close and personal experience with what it's like to be in an area and to see the signs, to see the indications, and to sense, because I also have that sixth sense thing, to have that contact, that telepathic connect that says, we are not alone, and the things that are around us are going to require us to do an upgrade. So one of the people who was there, I was really fortunate because I went at the same time that Gary Hart showed up. Gary Hart is a researcher, and Gary Hart researches basically all across the board Fortean phenomena. So it would be Sasquatch, it would be UFO, it would be paranormal, anything that basically makes you go, what the heck is happening? And a whole lot of that all at once, like the Skinwalker Ranch and Bradshaw Ranch. And I talked with Gary before we started. He said he's been there. And that's what I wanted to get into was, how do you research this? What questions do you ask? And find out more about Gary, and because this sounds to me like a fabulous lifestyle. Gary Hart, thank you. I appreciate you showing up and taking some time to talk with us, because this is a fascinating subject, and I think a lot more people are curious about this than they let on, all right? So nobody's listening that we feel uncomfortable with, because it's just you and I, all right? Yeah, there's no witnesses. It's just you and I talking, then, so we can talk about anything, which is a lovely freedom to have. Gary, thank you, and welcome to Wendy's Coffee House.
Well, nice to be here. I appreciate having this opportunity to talk to your listeners.
All right. Background. How did you get started? And I've only got 3 minutes of the break, but we'll get into more of it. But just a quick overview. What got you into this?
Well, I've been into this for about 35 years. It was back in the 60s when I first read a UFO book. And then I kind of seemed like the phenomenon was pretty interesting, at least from that standpoint. And then I put it down, and then a number of years later, I picked up another book and became aware of it again. And it was obvious to me, well, it did. So I've been interested in it because it's a mystery. It's the world's greatest mystery, is the way I look at it. And when you see all the other things that are tied into it, then it makes it even more interesting. In fact, many times there are locations where everything is happening at once. That's
the phenomena I think that more people are noticing. That somehow, originally, I think the idea was that this was just a one unusual, significant, the one be-all, end-all area everybody had to investigate, and that isn't the case.
Right. There are quite a number of different places, but I can target them. I know the characteristics to look for, because there seem to be physical characteristics that are important for extremely active areas, where we have a lot of different types of phenomena. You can see something at any moment. And when one area is extremely active, you can see something, potentially see something in the 360-degree direction all around you at any given moment.
I've got a new camera for that.
What kind of camera do you have?
It's a 360, and oh gosh, it's the GoPro 360. And I have to get the program to get it actually to do the 360. Right now it's got a lovely one-sided view of it, but I tested it out to make sure that it does work, and it's just me who has to get up to speed, but that'll help.
Yes. Some of the stuff that I've seen, though, is very dim. So I've had to go into the type of camera that is extremely low-light sensitive camera. Mm-hmm. And I did that for got several pictures for the people at board camp. You can barely see with your eyes glow at the top of the hill. And with the camera that I got some 3 very poor pictures, but at least you could see the glow that was maybe 10 times brighter than it looks like daylight almost.
Wow. And see, that's what I think is a lot of people they're frustrated because they can't get an image. And so
you have
some
to
people
know why. You
yes.
have to have a scientific background. You have to know why. If you get a black picture from your camera, you can determine why that is. It's not that somebody shut your camera off. In most cases, it's that your camera isn't designed to take the kind of pictures to document what you're looking at. A camera's not like your eye. and it needs to be made a lot more sensitive. So that whenever you go out and research, you always come back with a list of things that you need to tweak,
Yeah.
that you need to change and improve your equipment and your understanding of what's going on.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break.
Yeah.
Gary Hart, my guest, and also sometimes referred to as a Sasquatch Whisperer, but he does more than that. That's how we happen to connect with his visit to Board Camp Crystal Mine. Going to come back and find out if we were tagging along with you on an investigation at a site where things are happening. We want to know what you would be looking for. And so when we come back, let's get into some of that to find out how to ask the right questions and what to pay attention to. Next on Wendy's Coffee House. Wendy's Coffee House, KCMO Talk Radio. My guest is Gary Hart. He is a researcher. He investigates, he explores, he asks questions, he does the math. A little more complicated than I'd like to get into, but he's the one who goes back and tries to figure out why these things are happening, what the correlations are, what other things that we might look for. I wonder about the ley lines of the area, whether there's something there that makes the electricity respond different. What else is going on? And Gary researches all sorts of Fortean phenomena, so this is right up his alley, and I'm really glad we have a chance to ask you some questions. So if we were going along, you're preparing to go and explore, investigate a site. Can you set up something like that for me?
Yes. Yes. I mean, if we went out together, it would be best. And I would talk about what I know about the area.
Okay.
And what sort of research I've done, background research. But usually when I go into a new area, I just go in there and experience whatever's there. And then essentially things come to me. And then I research the background of the area. It demonstrates that there's enough, that I have enough interest, that enough things have happened, that I look at the background of the area, which means I look at the geology first.
Mm-hmm.
Because from my experience, geology is, faults are ley lines. Now, anything I say, other people may have a different opinion, but I have to base my opinions, my conclusions, on my own personal experience.
Agreed.
So
yes.
That is my personal experience, because when you have a particular fault, a system present, then you can get a tremendous amount of energy that is produced and a number of different phenomena and entities involved.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like they are attracted. In some cases, there are new life forms that the energy from fault structures that's their habitat. That energy coming out of a fault structure is their habitat.
Yeah.
And it's not. I believe that the energy is completely different. It may have piezoelectric effects, as many people would say, but the energy is different. There's something different about it that fault structures are able to produce. And from my experience so far, faults are the only natural structures that can produce this type of energy.
So does it have to be, some of these are like old volcano sites or pre-volcanic activity, I think is the one way of putting it. What does that factor into it?
Yes. The area that I'm getting the most results from right now, because it's closer to my home, and the board camp is just a recent addition, is the southeast Missouri area, where it's the volcanic activity is 1.5 billion years old. And you have multiple eruptions from, I would say, they recognize 3 different calderas, but they have information that would suggest that there are a number of others in that area. So the area is underlain by granite, which is magma that's solidified, and it's got a high degree of quartz and fault structures that are significant to areas with a high degree of activity. In the southeast Missouri area, you have what are called grabens, which are fault blocks where the volcanic activity occurred, and then the rock shrunk or pulled apart and formed grabens that are huge rectangular blocks
mm-hmm.
of rock. And in this case, I'm studying an area where there is a graben that's 6 miles by 7 miles, and it's
wow.
like a dropped block. The area, the rock is fractured, and this block is dropped 800 or 900 feet from the surface of the ground. But then it's been, in the intervening years, it's been filled in with sediment, so you can't see it. But if you look at a map, an aerial photo, you can see evidence of it, but mm-hmm. the normal person wouldn't have any idea what that means. Well, what keyed me into the importance of geology is that there was a report written, Michael Persinger, a scientist,
Yes.
And another American scientist back a number of years ago came up with the tectonic strain theory, and he got a lot of flack from the UFO community because he was trying to explain all UFO sightings using this theory of fault-generating energy. It turns out that it's not responsible for all UFO activity. You can't do that.
Yeah.
It's an overreach. It makes you more like a debunker than anything. But I have found that what they discovered is true, and they've written a number of scientific papers about it. And the most recent scientific paper was written in 2014, and it linked all kinds of UFO phenomena, strange light phenomena, to these certain fault structures, and that's the first time that's ever been done.
Wow.
The scientists still don't understand themselves what that means, but I jumped off their research into my own research, and especially in Missouri, where it's the closest volcanic activity to where I live, and started investigating all the different types and kinds of sightings in Missouri. It's the perfect place to study. I now have a friend. I've been working with the co-investigator for 11 years down in Salem, Missouri.
Uh-huh.
And when you go into an active area, you see things yourself. You raise the probability that you will have a sighting of your own. And I've seen all kinds of things just by being in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
Now, I've seen things in my backyard here in central Illinois. We've got cornfields all around. But down in Missouri, you multiply the probability that you'll see something. And at some point, if you continue your interest, if you're interested in them,
yes,
generally them, the entities involved with the activity, then they'll be interested in you. And I found that to be true.
Yes.
I've had some interesting interactive interaction with the entities, and so that I see something practically every time I go down there. And at board camp, it seemed like things multiplied dramatically.
That's okay.
Especially in the Sasquatch realm.
Okay, I want to get back into that in the next break. But first, the type of phenomena that you're talking about that you see, I'm assuming you're including the UFOs, the orbs, the Sasquatch, and there are other Fortean elements to this. Are you getting is it the cryptid, like the big black dogs, the moth, all that good stuff in there too, or what else?
My co-investigator has taken pictures of a black panther just at the edge of Salem several years ago. You always have, when you have high activity areas, you will always have black panthers. The state will only recognize that mountain lions are present, which are basically brown panthers, if you want to look at it that way. Mm-hmm. Black panthers are impossible. The only sighting of a black panther I'm aware of was several years ago down in Arizona, I believe.
Okay.
That came up through Mexico. And they, according to the state and the federal government, they can't exist anywhere else. But you find reports of them wherever you have a high frequency of UFO sightings, particularly. And, of course, you'll have Sasquatch there also.
Well, and that was my thing, the Sasquatch. That's also usually, or I have read that the black panthers are sometimes seen in those same areas. Like Texas was one of the ones I read a sighting report for. Yes,
well, I became aware early on that wherever you have UFOs, you have Sasquatch. I have since modified my view and determined that Sasquatch are everywhere. They are extremely intelligent, and they can be anywhere they want to be. And so that I don't know the full mechanics of this entire situation, but I know a large parts of it. And my understanding is now that Sasquatch can be wherever you are, everywhere, and they can come to you if you establish a relationship with them, which is exactly what they've done with my wife and I.
Okay, see, that's the fascinating part. All right, so we want to get in this next break. All right, again, I'm talking with Gary Hart, and if you've heard, he's a researcher, so he's got a lot more to talk about. But I want to get into what happened at the board camp Crystal Mine, because that's where we connected. And he was there for, 2 or 3 weeks. We'll find out what all he found and what that was like to be in a place that is so incredibly active, and you are magnetized. You are attracting what you're seeking so that you can study it better. It really works that way. So your thoughts are super important when it comes to this. If you're a skeptic, if you're a denier, if you're a novice, if you're totally wide open and going, help, you are being read. And that's the essential part of this that I think more people are beginning to pick up on. And if you haven't, well, this is an education. Again, my guest is Gary Hart, and we're talking about all across the board, the activity that happens in these places like Skinwalker Ranch, the Bradshaw Ranch. You're reading the books, you're seeing the films, you're hearing the music, you're hearing all the things that go along with this. And this is the behind the scenes of what the research tells us and how we can figure out maybe how to connect a few more dots. Wendy's Coffee House, KCMO Talk Radio, back with more, and Gary Hart here in a few. KCMO Talk Radio, Wendy's Coffee House. Okay, get your coffee. This is your wake-up call. This is the reality that happens that people are sometimes a little too intimidated to talk about among others. And so they keep it to themselves until somebody breaks the ice and says, oh, by the way, this is what happened. And it might be a UFO. And then they'll kind of laugh or chuckle. And if the other people don't laugh and chuckle and they say, well, it happened to me, you've got a conversation. It happened with I've had a doctor, my dermatologist. He says, yeah, in Iowa. It might have been Nebraska. I'm keeping his anonymity until he wants to come forward. But that's the way this happens. And so finding somebody like Gary, who's been researching this and been interested in it for, almost 4 decades, is a real help so we can figure out what's going on. Now, you said when you were at Board Camp Crystal Mine that a lot of these things were magnified and amplified and there was more activity. Give us a clue.
Every day, something moved. Something was found in a different position every day. And a number of things happened after I left. I was there for a little short of 2 weeks. And I was thinking I was going to be there for 3 days. I just kind of get a feel for the situation.
Yes.
It's the longest distance from my house right now at 650 miles. Of any place that I still work, although I've been across 2/3 of the United States looking for activity, I came to the conclusion I had to be close to it, otherwise you can't study it for an extended period of time.
Right.
Now, a group like MUFON doesn't seem to study any place for an extended period of time, and if there is any other phenomena than UFOs, they basically toss it to the side, the location to the side.
Oh, man. Mm-hmm.
And I don't throw away any data. And I've been talking to even with another Sasquatch researcher that says he doesn't want a close experience. And I say, well, if you don't want a close experience, then you're throwing away data too.
Yeah.
Because I had the typical reaction where, well, what happens if a Sasquatch you out in the woods all alone at night, and a Sasquatch comes out and stands right next to you? What are you going to do? Are you going to be afraid? Well, yes.
Yeah, that's part of it.
But I talked to other people that have had their own experiences. First of all, you can talk yourself down from that way, and that you don't need to be afraid.
Right.
Well, I then was thinking, well, if I get into a situation like that, if I don't feel fear or a reason to be afraid, then why should I be afraid myself? Mm-hmm. So it turns out one of the times I was staying in Salem, Missouri, this friend of mine and a friend of this co-investigator's house, a friend of his and now a friend of mine called and said, well, the activity starts about 11:30 in my backyard. Now, he had as a teenager, he had activity, experienced the Sasquatch activity at a nearby state park in the fall, late fall, and early spring, where they had seen footprints. They had something go through their campsite at night, messing around with stuff on their table.
Yeah.
And he saw enough. He also had uncles that lived in that area that had a cabin and a house, and they actually saw Sasquatch walking around and grabbing pigs and running into the forest and things like that, and footprints also.
When you're a farmer, that's not a good way to make friends, because they're just want your livelihood.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, you share until you give them the respect of acknowledging that they exist, and then you can have a relationship with them, and they will not bother your livestock. Otherwise, they will.
I think, respect is a huge deal, because the stuff I've read, the people who were researching Skinwalker Ranch, I think they were there for 8 years or so, and they had a lot of activity, but they kind of treated it in a way, like a lab experiment. But
exactly. They want to keep it at arm's length.
Yeah, and that's like,
even
okay.
If they wouldn't admit that, that's what they were doing. They set up telephone poles with cameras on top, and they wanted to cover the whole property. It was overkill. Mm-hmm. It's not the way the phenomena wants to deal with you. Like even now, the Sasquatch, with friends of mine that are trying to work with them and record and take pictures and whatnot, I say, forget the pictures.
Yeah.
The Sasquatch keep telling me, you want the relationship. You should want to know more about them, because I've found them to be extremely intelligent. They're multidimensional. They can go between this dimension and the next dimension.
Yeah.
That's how they can become invisible. They can light up their eyes. And as I said, extremely wise, not just intelligent, but to the point that they're actually wise. They can they see themselves as guardian angels in some people's lives.
Real quick, Gary, I want to insert the things that I read that were the similarities between Bradshaw and the Sherman. I think they kept it. They named it Gorman in the book. Ranch, which is the Skinwalker Ranch, were that they could see into these other dimensions. Like at one point, the guy's looking through a scope and he sees it's sunset here, and he sees through an area that kind of opened up in his scope, and he's seeing another place that the sun hasn't set. It's still there. And he's like, oh.
That's right.
Okay, both those places had those kinds of experiences. Have you had anything like that happen yet at board camp?
Not yet. The Sasquatch have shown me places. They have, somehow or another, they've gotten me to play several places at night in Missouri where I saw portals open up.
Okay.
I've seen 4 portals.
Wow. Okay.
Now, portals apparently have different characteristics.
Yeah.
And I don't know what they all mean because they don't look all the same. Some of them are touching the ground. Some of them are in midair. Some of them have a geometric outline. Some of them have a fuzzy outline, and those are the ones that are the most natural.
Okay, quick.
Other ones are.
So what happens around a portal?
You see activity. Some of the portals I was looking at in this one particular situation, I knew the Squatch were on either side of me because they keep moving around in the woods and were making cricket light sounds, one on either side of me.
Okay.
They don't tell me what to think, but they get me there. Somehow or another, they get me there at night to the right place.
Wow.
When one portal opened up, and I wouldn't have known that it was there because it was like a moonless night, and it was dark, but this hole opened up, and I was seeing streams of UFOs moving on the other side, 2 opposite streams. So I can't even count how many objects I was actually seeing, and that's why when I saw 20 objects a number of years ago, I just gave up counting about how many different things I've seen. But you would see the light of them. So multiple UFOs, and the impression I got was that this is a trade route. This is a freight route, and that it appears to be just a few miles away. And yet there's a veil. It got fuzzy, and this hole opened up, and then it was open for, 10 minutes or so, and then it very slowly closed up. That there is a veil between dimensions.
Yes.
And there are 2 main dimensions, but many other dimensions, and now even Linda Moulton Howe has acknowledged he got some government information that said there are 2 main dimensions, so that's really the focus. The Squatch could be at either dimension. They can become invisible by jumping from one dimension to another. Mm-hmm. They're only approximately 3% different in genetic material in DNA from us. So I assume, and other people have said, that we have the same capabilities that they do, but we just don't know how to do it. We don't have a teacher. Well, the teacher is the Sasquatch.
And that's my thought, too, is that this is the intermediary because the UFO element, that ET element, is just a little bit too far removed from us.
Right. The Sasquatch are more relatable. They look very much like us, except they have hair, more hair. They're more adapted to the environment they have to live in around us. So there are teachers. Now, I made the statement to another UFO researcher here in Illinois that I thought they were wise, and I was in his UFO group or his Sasquatch group. He immediately kicked me out, and then unfriended me. He didn't want to hear that. No. His idea is that they're an ape with the intelligence of a 5-year-old, and he did not want to hear me even just stating that I had experiences that led me to believe that they were wise.
Okay, Gary, hang on. We're going to get more into that here in the next break. Again, Gary Hart, who's basically I'm a Fortean investigator, and all things are related. All these things. It may not seem like it, but the more research you do, the more this fascinating subject begins to have a lot more threads and a lot more similarities that, like he said, you can't throw anything out. You've got to connect more dots. Back with Gary in a few on Wendy's Coffee House, KCMO Talk Radio. KCMO Talk Radio. It's Wendy's Coffee House. Yeah, this is when coffee tastes really good. All right. It could be iced coffee. This is what I think is so fascinating about this. When I had my own experience, things happening in the house, moving, and knowing that there was a presence there. I mean, I was guided from room to room because something was in my house. Somebody had put a little, some toys, and my dog took me from room to room. And each time I cleared the room, she would then leave the door frame area and take me to the next room. So she and I had this incredible connection while this happened. I heard in telepathic connection, Bob's your uncle. I look over at where I usually have my work study group, my little place that I have all mapped out for all of my homework. And from my date book is a picture hanging out halfway with my deceased Uncle Bob. And I'm like, holy cow. Something new and walked me through that house along with my dog to help me clear the space, clear the energy. Now, this is just an overview. But so I'm very familiar with this stuff, and I really think it's fantastic that more people are coming to the same conclusion, and Gary here's right on the front lines of saying these things are connected and we need to do more investigating and less overlooking and throwing it out because it doesn't meet the pre-formatted idea of how it's supposed to be explored and explained. Does that make sense, Gary?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So Sasquatch, when you're talking and you're communicating, you're saying these guys are real. I know it's for people who aren't there yet. It's beyond comprehension.
Every living thing has a soul. Souls go through a series of lifetimes and they change bodies, but that makes the Sasquatch the same as you.
Okay.
So when we went into the backyard of this guy that had invited me over, they were there just off his backyard. And several months earlier, we'd found what was essentially a deer blind that they had built. It was like 12 feet tall, and it was branches and vines and trees that were all woven together so that you could just walk inside it, and then it was opaque on one side, and you could look into his backyard where he was feeding deer. Mm. They were using it as a hunting area, and we walked into his backyard. They literally treated us like old friends. Which was a stunner. And there was one that walked invisibly in front of me and stood by my side and then walked directly away. They always flank you. They always check you out, and that's the way they do it. But they do it invisibly. I felt it. My senses were that he did that. Then the other ones that were over across this small fence were all making their own sounds. And I can't duplicate any of them, but they were different. There were about 5 of them there, so that I could tell where each one was at any given moment. And we were making sounds, trying to imitate the sounds and making them back to them. Mm-hmm. I've never heard anybody say that they were that close to a group of them and that they were interacting.
Yeah.
And it was fascinating. Now, from there, they allowed me to go to different places where it looks perfectly normal to the average person, but they're out in the woods or in a very remote area. Mm-hmm. I went there, and I was seeing sky flickers. And I couldn't figure out, well, why am I seeing the sky flicker? Are those headlights from cars traveling around somewhere? Right. That is a phenomenon that occurs with faults that are under stress. You see flickers that ripple across the sky. Ah. And then I saw a portal. I saw light where there shouldn't have been light. And there was a portal. I went there, and I saw UFOs zipping through this huge hole that was just above me. And it was illuminating that area. But as you backed away, the illumination went down to nothing.
Yes. And that's why I've read with Skinwalker. You could see it from a certain perspective.
That's the connection. Another time when they put me into the woods, and they were there, I saw the portals open up, but initially I saw little colored blinks of light in the woods near me. I pulled my car off a gravel road, been several miles into the national forest. I saw these blinks of light. Over the course of the next hour or two, the blinks of light came closer and turned into a cloud of orbs, moving all around and flashing at me, clearly interacting with me. No question about it, because one of them flashed brighter and brighter and brighter, and it finally got my attention. It was at the top of the tree, and then it zipped away.
I was like, okay, tag.
Yes, then I saw the portal and the UFOs on the other side, and then I saw I had cameras there, but I did not grab them because I was told if you try to photograph these orbs, they're going to leave. They're going to go, and they're not going to come back.
Yeah.
And I've heard that from a number of other people. They flash a light or something, and they get scared. I don't want to scare them. I want to establish a relationship with them. And then what happened next was I saw a pseudostar, which is first discovered back in '73 by the by a scientific study that was done at Piedmont, Missouri. A pseudostar, and usually you see a light moving off a star, a white light moving off a star. Mm-hmm. That's what I saw. And then this white light started bouncing around in the sky. I grabbed my camera, and I was able to get it on video as this thing, excuse me, was flashing really bright colors. Mm-hmm. So I have on my Facebook page, right now I added pictures so that now you see one of these light arcs of multiple colors in an arc as it's moving around. And if you click on that, you can see a second picture of the light arc. I took very short clips of video, was able to capture the frames, and you can see these light arcs unlike anything else. I would expect that these are seen at other places, and in fact, a similar phenomena is seen near Board Camp. I can say that for sure. Probably at, I didn't see that at Bradshaw Ranch because there was a number of different times, but Sherman Ranch, yes. I would guess that they see those because it's a common feature. But it was bouncing around in the sky, and then it started hiding from me. It went behind a tree, and I had to move to the side several times to get it to see it again.
Yes.
So it's interacting with the person, the witness, clearly, and I was able to document that. Mm-hmm. What this is a device seems to be a device of some kind that calculates where a star is and where you are and puts it between the two. That's where it starts. So intelligent things, and I now have talked to a number of people. You go into a UFO database, you'll find these reports of pseudostars. So that's where you need to understand intelligent things have been flying through our skies that you can determine. You don't need the government to tell you that they've been here for how long and who put them there.
Yeah.
They're clearly not ours. Yeah. And I know that because I then saw stars. It was as if things went back to normal with this pseudostar. I didn't see it. Mm-hmm. So I started taking pictures of the stars that I thought it had come off of. And I think I took about 6 or 7 pictures, and it turns out that the last picture, instead of you seeing, I took a picture of 2 stars. Instead of both stars being bluish-white, one of them was a little off-color, so it magnified it. Mm-hmm. And it turns out to be a box with 2 spheres on the side of it.
Excellent. Gary, so do you have is that a Facebook page, a public page?
Yes. Yes, it is.
Okay, what's the page? It's just Gary Hart?
Gary Hart.
Okay, because I think
Sasquatch Whisperer.
Okay, I think people want to see that. All right. See
two pictures of light arcs, and then a third picture with those of this box with 2 spheres. Now, that's not what I saw because it's extremely highly magnified.
Yeah.
But that's when you have good equipment, take a picture, lots of pixels to work with, and sharpen it. There was another case in Steelville, was a year or so ago.
A minute. We've got a minute.
Or somebody else saw the same thing, and we enlarged that, and there are 3 different pictures. All those 3 plus my one, all of them look different. So the object changes shape.
Gary, we have to talk more, and I really want people to connect with you on your page, and I'll also put links on the Wendy's Coffee House blog
and the
site.
Sasquatch were moving things around and clapped at us, and very close contact every day and every night at Board Camp.
See, that's the fantastic thing about this. It's ongoing, It's happening, and I agree.
It wants you to interact.
Yes. It's a learning experience.
I've found no reason to be afraid.
So, okay. So, Gary Hart.
It's absolutely
fascinating. It's still doing the research. It's ongoing. They're opening up an education center. That's the next phase of this with Board Camp Crystal Mine. In addition to the crystals, we didn't even get into that. Gary, thank you. We got to go.
It's amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll talk again.
Thank you for the opportunity to talk with you.
Okay. And if you're listening, stay curious. Keep an open mind. Ask what, why, how, and say OMG. Till next time. See ya.